Ding 60. We did it. Max level, baby. Time for the fun to really begin. Welcome to episode 60 of Countdown to Classic. Now, those are 8 words that I couldn't have imagined saying, but here we are. Yes, in just a scant 188 days, Countdown to Classic is ringing in its 60th episode. You wanted WoW Classic content, and you got it. But for all you newcomers who are wondering right now, what the hell is this guy with the funny accent going on about? What am I listening to, and what do you mean there's 59 other episodes of it? Well, say it loud and proud with me, everyone. This is a podcast that educates, informs, and gossips non-stop about World of Warcraft Classic. Each week we discuss the news, hot button issues, and content of the highly anticipated World of Warcraft Classic. I'm your host, Josh Corbett, and this is a show where it's not my opinion on World of Warcraft that counts, but yours. If you're new to the show, Countdown to Classic goes through your expert input on everything relating to the sure-to-be amazing World of Warcraft Classic. Today we are doing nothing short of celebrating the vanilla World of Warcraft community and the amazing listeners of Countdown to Classic with a very special event here on the show. Quite a while ago, some of you Discord members may be aware that I put the call out for 6 confident and intelligent combatants to take part in the very first Countdown to Classic Great Debate. 3-on-3, high school style rules. Pride is on the line, mate versus mate, in the great changes versus no changes argument that has somewhat divided a strong, amazing community of vanilla World of Warcraft fans. Once you've heard this episode though, please do jump on the Countdown to Classic Discord. The link is in the show notes and on the website if you haven't joined already, because I'll have pinned a straw poll up in general chat where you can vote on who won this debate. And please do vote on the actual merits of the participants, not just voting on whether or not you happen to be a changes or a no changes type of person. I'll announce the winner sometime soon on the show. On top of that, if you happen to enjoy the debate that you're about to hear, or if you enjoy any of the content that Countdown to Classic brings you on a regular basis, then please do check out the Countdown to Classic Patreon page, where you'll find a number of different options in which you can show your support for Countdown to Classic and everything that we're doing here at the show. Also, you'll see on the website a link to Ko-Fi, where you can also throw the show a coffee if you feel the need. But if you can, show some support for Countdown to Classic, because obviously I take my time out to bring you this great show every week. So if you can, then obviously I always appreciate it. Now, please do hang around after the debate is done for a bit of an extended thank you from me and for some news on the show and a lot of shout outs. So see if your name gets mentioned there at the tail end of the show. But with all that said, let's ding 60 in style with the Great Debate. Hello everyone and welcome to a very special event here at Countdown to Classic. Today we are bringing you the Great Debate. Changes versus no changes. 3-on-3. High school rules. Let's settle this thing once and for all. Now, to give you all a little bit of a background on what we're doing here today, I have assembled a dream team of debaters for the changes and the no changes side of the coin. As you know, here on Countdown to Classic, if you've been listening to the show, we are adamant that both sides get a say in every point that we put forward. So, what have we all been talking about over the last few months? Well, that little thing of changes versus no changes has come up a little bit if you weren't paying attention. So, I figured we'd just settle it with a little bit of fun here and a little bit of a tweak on the way in which we do things. Now, I must throw out a really big thank you to listener Shab, who sent me through the following suggestions for the way in which to conduct these proceedings. Shab was actually I believe he was a high school debate coach, and he sent me through a boatload of information that really helped with putting together this special event for you all. So what I'll do now is I'll introduce all of the teams so you get to know the debaters and who's representing your interests today on Countdown to Classic. So for team changes, we have the following people. We've got PWJ, Taladrill, and Ruckus. Everyone say hello.
What's going on, guys?
Hello. Hey.
And for team no changes, we have Mike, also known as Balls of Steel, Venustus, and Wilson Ma. One by one, guys, starting with you, Mike. Everyone say hello.
Hi, all the fellow listeners of Countdown to Classic. It is great to be here.
Hello. Looking very forward to it. Let's go.
Let's get this thing started.
Excellent. Let's get ready to rumble, everyone. Now, you might be asking, well, Josh, this sounds great and everything, but how the fuck are you going to do this, managing 6 people? Well, 6 rabid debaters ready to go, chomping at the bit to get stuck into each other. Here's how it's going to go down today. So, I will be introducing 6 topics during this debate, and those topics are the following: graphics, quality of life, core gameplay changes, retuning dungeons and raids, patch 1.13, and changing current content, such as, nerfing diamore farming or the druid aquatic quest or AQ40 items, things of that nature. Within those 6 topics, we've got a very set structure. Now, I don't want to sound too formal here. This has a formal structure, but this is very much a fun, casual conversation. So the structure will be as following. The opening speaker for one of the teams will begin a topic. They will be able to speak for 5 minutes maximum. They will get a warning for time purposes at the 3-minute mark, and you'll hear me say time warning. And I'll also play a little bit of a sound clip that you'll hear on stream, but the guys won't hear within the podcast. After that time warning, at 5 minutes, they will be capped off. So it's 5 minutes max. They have to wrap up their points and stop. Once that's done, we get the cross-examination of that speaker by the opposing team. This is open slather. Anyone from the opposing team can jump in on a first-come, first-served basis and test the evidence of the opening speaker via a question and answer type situation. After that, the other team will begin to present their point via their 5-minute speech, and then they will be cross-examined by the other team, and cross-examination will have a 3-minute maximum. After the second set of cross-examination, we'll have closing arguments from the replying team and then closing arguments from the opening team, which will take 2 minutes maximum. So it's all very regimented here, but I don't want to make it sound like it's going to be super stuffy. It is high school rules, but we're not in high school anymore, and the claws are out, and the boys are absolutely very, very keen to get into this one. And they've been preparing for about a week or 2 now, some more than others, so it should be a bit interesting, and we'll see how we all go here. So, on the count of 3, I want everyone to tell me, are you ready for this one?
Let's do it.
Sorry, 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah, let's go.
Woo!
I should probably count after I say on the count of 3. It generally helps.
Yeah, come on, Josh. Step on your fucking game. Come on, man.
Dropping the ball.
Jesus Christ.
All right. So let's get straight into it, everyone. And we're going with topic number 1, graphics. And what I'll do is we'll start off with PWJ. Do your thing. Go into bat for changes on graphics.
I think this is a good topic to start off on because everyone and their mom has an opinion on what Blizzard should do in terms of graphics. So hopefully we can finally straighten this all out and we can stop all the Reddit posts once and for all. So World of Warcraft's been in development for like almost 14 years now, and there's been plenty of expansions, plenty of changes, and the development team since then has grown, learned a lot more, and Blizzard's legendary level of polish on their final products is kind of renowned. And if you were to log into retail WoW right now, whether you like it or not, there's no denying that the game's functionality, its aesthetics are sharper than they've ever been. Like macros, graphics, all these things that have been worked on for years. And now that our computers are much better than they were back then, they can finally handle these kinds of things. Now, I think it's only a small minority that want vast graphic changes to classic WoW. I think most people would agree that we don't want to see all new brand new spell animations and revamped armor and stuff like that making their way into the original World of Warcraft. Because not only would it severely drain a lot of the time and resources the developers have, because I know we all want this fucking game to come out and we don't want them to waste more time working on these kinds of things. But I think it would also be kind of a stark juxtaposition with like newer models and stuff against the old landscape. However, Blizzard has come a long way in the technology they have available now than the ones they did back in 2004 when they were making the game. And I think they finally have the ability to implement some of the things they probably wished they would have been able to do when they first created the game. I'm talking things like improved view distance, the new water rendering technology they have, improved high detail shadows. Personally, I think these graphic updates really bring the game to life and still allow a big amount of immersion to players that the developers probably wanted in the first place, but were just simply not able to achieve because, you know, they were limited back then in what they're able to do. So things like being able to see Thunderbluff from Bloodhoof Village, or seeing the silhouette of your Thunder Fury on your Rogue Shadow, or seeing a Zeppelin pass overhead due to its shadow flying by on Grom Gold. I think these are really cool things that add a lot to the game. I think they're good additions, and I think they were only introduced later simply because Blizzard didn't have the means to do it back then.
Time is money, friend.
Yeah, they didn't have the time, and they were focused on other things, like getting the game off the ground in the first place. So I think these general aesthetic changes are good. They don't really affect players around you. If you don't like them, you can always turn your graphics down, if you want to go back to those nostalgic shadows and stuff. And finally, I want to add that I think from the information we got from the dev water cooler, I think that not only are these changes potentially good, but I think they're kind of imminent. Because the gist that I got from that post was that the game's going to be relying heavily on the retail WoW engine. So I think with that, when we log into Classic, when you press Escape, you're probably going to see a lot of those modern interface and video options, the colorblind accessibility, et cetera, et cetera. And I think these ultra graphics are going to be available there. So I think it's very likely that we're going to see these kinds of things implemented, whether or not you guys like it. And I'm all for it, man. I think it's a good addition to the game, as the game went on and looked nicer. I know I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I think a lot of returning classic WoW players will as well.
After that fantastic opening speech there by PWJ, we will now turn over to the cross-examination of PWJ by Team No Changes. And as I said earlier, this will have a 3-minute max time limit, and this is open to anyone on the No Changes team. So first come, first served. I'll turn it over to you, Team No Changes. Go for it.
So I would like to say one thing, or discuss one thing. You said about the graphics increase, like the distance increase. You say it would be good to see Thunderbluff from the starting village. Am I not right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think that will bring down the immersion, and the feeling of the world is big, because if you can see more the world, the Azeroth would be feel smaller and smaller. You can really feel that in the retail WoW when you can just crank up the distance and you can see everything, like the whole strength on Veil. You can see from top to bottom. You can see everything. And I think if you increase that to the high levels, like the retail WoW we have today, it will bring down the immersion a lot.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I don't like the small view distance where it's almost like a fog of war beyond 100 meters from your character where you can't really see anything. I think that was just because in original WoW they just weren't able to allow users to see further than that. I mean, cranked up to 11, being able to see the other continent from fucking Kalimdor, I get that, but I think even just a small increase to the view distance, I think a majority of players would like more.
I actually really just liked the like 100-meter fog of war. It always just made the world like feel more dangerous to me, in the sense that especially when I was new to the game, I didn't know what to expect exactly. So it just gave it a veil of mystery to all of Kalimdor and Azeroth, Eastern Kingdoms.
Yeah, I get that. I think though that regardless of what we think, what we'd like to see, I think based off it potentially running off retail WoW, I don't think we're gonna have a choice, honestly. I think they're gonna make the change whether or not we like it. Because I don't know much about programming and stuff, but I imagine if they're working it through that engine, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to have an entire different set of video options and interface options, etc., for just the classic WoW servers. I think we're still going to see these ultra settings and the ability to turn on the high water rendering and etc.
All right, we'll close that cross-examination. Very well done, everyone. And with cross-examination at a close now, we will now turn over to Team No Changes and their first speaker, Wilson Ma. Take it away.
So I'll start off by saying that PWJ had had some good points and a great opening statement. But to me, I feel that changing the graphics would be changing the game. For me, if you go and change the graphics to be as good as they are today, as you were saying, like I don't play retail, I don't really like it, and I feel like the World of Warcraft that I played, the classic or vanilla that I played, the not so good graphics is part of that. And if you add the graphics that there are today, I would feel like I'm playing a retail. It wouldn't feel like the classic WoW that I grew up playing. I was 15 years old when I started playing it. If you even just change the graphics, or like you were saying, the like Fog of War, that it added a mystery to it. Like, you can fly through Goldshire if you're on the Alliance, and you can kind of see the town, but there's other stuff that it just adds so much mystery that if you take that away, at least the mystery, that takes away part of the game to me. And when adding the graphics makes it feel like a retail, which I don't particularly enjoy. So it just wouldn't be the same to me. And I realized that the vanilla WoW won't ever really be the same as it was, but I want it to be as close as it can. And changing the graphics to me would change what I grew up with. It wouldn't be the same. And I know, a lot of the graphics or computers and stuff are better now. But to me, whether or not, like most games, I want the best graphics that I can get. World of Warcraft, classic or vanilla, whatever you want to call it, to me is the one game that I will accept, like, lower graphics, just because that's what I'm used to. It's the nostalgia for me.
Okay, very good opening speech there. We'll now turn over to cross-examination of Wilson Ma by Team Changes. Go for it, guys.
I'll just say that if you actually look at the old models for like armor, you can see that there's a difference in texture detail, even from the original like tier 1 through later content. So even in vanilla, there was graphical changes that maybe nobody noticed, but is still there. So if you didn't really notice it there, just, what's the harm in a little bit of a higher res for some stuff, or a little bit more view distance for some stuff? Like, it's so minuscule for the minutia that it's not that big of a deal, and it would make a lot of people actually want to come and play the game because they're not dealing with bad graphics. And there's a lot of people that can be a deal breaker, and we'd rather have people play the game. And we know that the people who like Classic are going to play it, but the ones that might not, graphics might be a deal breaker for them.
And, I can, I played, I think, pretty close to after it first came out. So some of those minute changes, like to the texture of the armor that you're saying, I didn't realize that. I guess I'm thinking more of I'm currently playing on the newest Fresh Lights Hope server. So, the graphics from there, if you changed it, I'm talking if you changed it to more of what retail looks like, to me that would be a big difference, not necessarily just small details like in the armor and stuff.
Yeah, you had some good points. I mean, a lot of us agree gameplay trumps graphics for nearly every game. But I dropped $300 on my 144 hertz monitor. I'd like to get some use out of it and my 1060 GTX. And if it's just sliders that you have your personal preference. If you want to crank the graphics up just because simply it's what you're used to or what you like, I think they should have that option available to all players. And if you want to go for that more nostalgic feel, that fog of war, etc., the old water and stuff like that, you'd obviously have the ability to turn them down. But I think it would be a bit silly for Blizzard to just completely negate those kind of options for all players.
And I think you have a really good point. I know, obviously, I like the older graphics. I guess if it had the option for newer graphics, and sure, if someone else wants to play with, if you want to play with those updated graphics, you go right ahead. You want to get your money's worth out of your computer, and I totally get that. But for me, as long as I like it, as long as I'm not forced to use updated graphics, as long as I can still play, the old graphics, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Totally, absolutely, man.
Okay, now we'll turn over to PWJ for the closing argument on this topic. So quickly summarizing, PWJ, what's your point at the end of the day?
I think people are pretty evenly split, I'd say. But yeah, I think giving players the option is kind of the most feasible thing for Blizzard to do, because obviously there's a large amount of players that are going to want those old graphics, and that's totally cool. I get that. I miss that feeling when I first logged into WoW, even on my crappy computer, and seeing it for the first time. I'm sure a lot of people are still chasing that after that. But I know that when I play on private servers now, the first thing I do when I log into my new character is go into those video settings and just start cranking things up. And it's just what I've gotten used to now. And I expect Blizzard's going to have it available for us. And I think it's going to be something that's going to be argued for or against up until Classic eventually gets released. Hopefully we'll get some word from Blizzard about what the hell they want to do.
Okay, and Wilson Ma, wrapping up for your side of the argument, taking everything into account.
I definitely get, again, where PWJ is coming from. But to me, the old graphics is what World of Warcraft is to me. That it makes it the game it is. I guess that's my closing statement.
No, not a worry at all. Excellent. Well, very well put. All right. Well, that's the first topic out of the way, and we've got 6 of those to come. So strap in, everyone. We'll move on to topic number 2, and that is quality of life. Now, I've left this up to the definition of the arguer. So whoever puts forward the argument for this particular topic, I haven't defined what quality of life changes are. It's completely in the eye of the beholder. We'll see what everyone comes up with, but we'll kick off again with the changes team, and PWJ again, you're going back to back. Start your argument for quality of life changes.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably haven't touched vanilla since they've touched it in the first place. And obviously we all remember it fondly and stuff like that. But going back to PTR servers recently, there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily broken with the game, but they're just simply overlooked by developers, whether it was they didn't realize it could potentially be a problem or just minor nuisances that, didn't really come to light until players dumped hours and hours and hours into the game. And I think they're not even bugs. They're just small fixes that Blizzard could easily change to the game that just overall makes the gameplay much better and a lot less frustrating for a vast majority of players. The things that come to mind are things like being able to send multiple items in a fucking mailbox, you know, like I can't tell you how many times I've had to send things to my alt bank character, and it's got to happen in 8 different, I got to type his name out 8 different times just to send, you know, 8 pieces of loot to him. You know, that's something that came later in the game just because Blizzard realized, all right, this isn't affecting anyone. You know, we can have people mail multiple items. It's not that big of a deal. Other things like having a reset button on the auction house after you've looked up one-hand green maces of the monkey level 27 to 30, you can easily just click the reset button to then search for, I don't know, bruiseweed or whatever it is. Flight paths for sure come to mind, whether it's having to dismount in order to talk to a flight path NPC before you can begin flying, or even being able to end the flight path short because either you misclicked or whatever it was. I've heard people say that they don't want the vast connected flight paths for some reason or another, but I don't know about you guys, but flying from Orgrimmar to Ungoro Crater is like perfect time to hit the bathroom. Or like if you misclick and you're now on a 20-minute flight path and your dungeon group just said, hey, by the way, we're meeting at Scarlet Monastery, come over. Just the ability to press that button to stop at the next flight path it's such a time saver. You know, these aren't things that are like breaking gameplay. It's just saving little bits of time that are needless, that I think everyone would appreciate. There's also a lot of things like I've noticed healing on private servers. I don't know whether it's not their coding or if this is how vanilla was, but I can't even see the amount I've healed my friendly players for unless I have special add-ons. Small key binding functionality that I think Blizzard could fix up to just make the game smoother for everyone. Being able to link professions via chat to easily whisper mats to another player. There's hundreds of these small things that Blizzard eventually fixed, but didn't in vanilla because they're more concerned about getting that first raid out or whatever it was. So I think if Blizzard, when they come out with Classic, take a hard look and just, you know, dot their I's and cross their T's and just fix up some of these things, I think it'd probably be appreciated by most of the players hitting Classic.
Very good. All right, now we'll turn over to cross-examination of PWJ by the No Changes team. Guys, go for it.
So my first thing was with the linking of professions, weren't you able to link like certain enchants just to be able to like show what mats you needed? Just like already? I'm pretty sure that was in the game already.
Can you do that on Lightbringer? Because I can't do it on K3, but maybe it's different.
You can.
Yes?
You should be able to do that, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if that was in vanilla or not, but
I don't think that was initially in vanilla.
Add-ons will tell you for at least like leatherworking and stuff like that to be able to show
no,
you
it's
needed.
No, it's not everything. It's enchanting. You can link the whole enchanting. You can see how many brilliant shards, how many essences you have.
I had leatherworking.
There you go. My mistake. That was my
enchanting book.
With regards to the flight path time, were you saying that you thought it was good that you wanted it connected, or I wasn't too clear?
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw some people mention that they want to manually click each separate flight path for immersion because that's how it was. I think that's silly. I think they should have all the flight paths connected, and you should have the ability to stop mid-flight path if need be.
Wasn't there I'm almost positive there was like at a point in Vanilla's life cycle where it was just you just clicked to the flight path and it just flew you there.
Yeah, it was later vanilla you could do that.
Yeah, that's how I'd like to see it implemented in the first place. But I'd also like the dismount button in order to stop your flight path early because I think it's a huge time saver.
I mean, it happened in part of like Vanilla's life cycle, so how was that a change?
Did it? Are you sure? I thought that wasn't implemented until like at least BC or Wrath of the Lich King.
I'm pretty sure I remember you just clicked on a flight path and I'm pretty sure that the flight paths weren't optimal. Like the flight paths were like they take the long way, so everything would take longer.
That too. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but like I'm pretty sure they were linked after 1.10, so it's not really a change.
Okay, the dismount button would be a change.
Yeah, dismount button is probably my top priority then.
All right, that's some quality cross. A lot of back and forth, a lot of things learnt and remembered from back in the day. Now what we'll do is we'll turn over to the opening shot from the No Changes team with Mike. Go for it.
So I just want to say that I think he had very good points, and that with these minor quality of life changes, sure, yes, it's not going to affect anyone other than, I would say, mainly the new players of this game. I just feel that, and I want to try to avoid the slippery slope argument because I know it's a very weird thing, but I feel like you're being very disingenuous to the people that want to experience vanilla the way it was. And sure, you could say that these minor things doesn't affect the spirit of the game. With all of that in mind, when does it come to a point that we have to say that if all of these little things happen, when will it stop feeling like vanilla is my main point, really.
We will now turn over, Mike, if you're done, we'll now turn over to cross-examination of Mike by team changes. Does anyone have anything for Mike?
Tear me apart.
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there are slippery slopes, and then there are things that are really thrown out of proportion. There's plenty of very small, like PWJ mentioned, life changes that, heck, half the people, it's like, do they even remember what was in vanilla or not? And all we're doing is just alienating people and playing the game of it's historically accurate to care about some of that stuff. Some major issues, like Dungeon Finder, that kind of thing, those were not in vanilla, and everybody knows they had an impact on the game. But, mail and auction capability, that's not going to piss anybody off except for people who are really, really dogmatically no changes.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Such simple changes. I mean, you'd really have to be, it would almost be as bad as it is now with retail, with people complaining about specific things. It's just, they're so simple. A lot of people probably wouldn't notice. I, for one, can't remember some things from vanilla, and if they would change them, like the mail, until I read it in the forums, I forgot about that. I wouldn't have even noticed. So, granted, there's a lot of people who aren't going to remember, these simple things.
Exactly. I think a lot of people wouldn't even notice if these changes slip their way in. I think they would notice, though, the first time they try to fly from Crossroads to Orgrimmar, and they fly all the way to Ratchet, and then fly back to Crossroads and begin their journey. Maybe the first time they'll be like, oh, that's funny. I forgot that happened. But by the 6th or 7th time, they're like, what the fuck, Blizzard? This is stupid.
Right. And
why does this need to be in the game?
I mean, I can see also happening, people going to send mail and reporting to Blizzard, hey, something's wrong with the mail. I can only send one item at a time. What's going on? Just because they didn't remember.
Yes.
That's how it was.
Mike, anything in response to those shots?
I would have to say that I wouldn't say it's a slippery slope, but I feel like with me that it will be like a snowball effect, that all these little things are just going to add up, and it'll just get to a point where I just feel like I'm playing a bastardized version of the game. That I just feel like I'm not playing the game that I asked Blizzard for. I will, me personally, I will, whatever weird bugs and stay of the game that vanilla had at that point, I want it. I want it all. I want to deal with it. But I feel it's just disingenuous to the people that wanted the game the way it was back then.
Okay, what if
let's say playing?
Right. What if Blizzard would say, look, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, these simple changes, mail, the flight path thing, dismounting, which is basic. They say, okay, this is it. You guys, this is vanilla. This is what you're getting, and we're done. So would that prevent you from playing, knowing that there's not going to be a slippery slope and there's not going to be a snowball effect? They're saying, look, this is silly that you can only send one item. Let's be able to send 10 or whatever you want, and then we're finished. Would that hamper you?
But like Balls of Steel is saying, which is a good point, because that's exactly what I was thinking. You make one change. Okay, you make the mail. Then you make the flight path. Well, what if, I know you're saying there's no slippery slope, but what if they're like, well, let's change the talent respect thing. They just, at some point, it may not stop. It'll just keep being small things, and to the point, it's not going to be the classic WoW that I grew up playing.
Well, I mean, that's what I said. I know it's only hypothetical, but, if Blizzard already said they don't want to dump a lot of time and money into this, I'm sure it would change if there would be millions of people on and they would be making money. But let's say they say, this is it. This is all we're doing. No more. Hypothetically, how would that affect your desire to come back? Would it make you not want to play? Just hypothetical that they say, this is it. We're done. We're not spending any more money on this. It's a museum piece, but we think there's a few things we can do to make it a little easier. You can just stop on a flight path or send more items in the mail.
The thing is, I'm sure that's what you're saying, but there's thousands, if not millions, other people that have this one thing they want to change. And if you pile it all up, guess what you have? You have retail World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Every those little pieces of changes. You have flight path. Somebody wants Hearthstone on 30 minutes instead of an hour. Somebody wants another 50 minutes. Somebody wants it distance. It's very hard to just say, I would just want this, and then we can make the game. So it's better to leave it off, no changes at all in terms of quality of life, and then nobody can get mad in terms of that.
Okay, what we'll do now, guys, is PWJ, I'll get you to summarize your argument in your closing submissions.
You guys offer a lot of fair points, and I agree. I don't want to see the game change completely drastically, that's what led us to retail now. But I still think there's a bunch of these things that Blizzard probably would have fixed in the first place if they were given the time or the opportunity, and they weren't able to reach until later. And I just think it's just nuisances that don't need to exist. They just exist due to happenstance. That's how the game first came out. And a large majority of players wouldn't even notice if they just touched up these little dents and scratches in the game. And I think it would help maintain the community, keep people, from getting frustrated over the game. And I think it would just be better overall.
Excellent. Well put. But what I'd ask you to do now, Mike, if you're ready, is to put forward your closing argument, taking everything into account that you've just heard on your point.
I just want to say that, in my opinion, that we shouldn't be able to cherry pick the things that we want out of vanilla. I think Blizzard should just be able to give us the game in the state it was, however they have to do that. It's disingenuous to the people that want it, to new players who want to experience it, and if they start catering to even the tiniest of things, it will create a snowball effect that will make it feel like I'm not playing the game I want. Or a lot of other people would probably feel the same way.
Excellent. Very well put. That's it for topic 2 for now. But let's move on to topic number 3 now. And I just want to say, everyone, you are doing so well. And everyone is being so damn polite to each other. This is unbelievable. Don't be shy to get angry, everyone.
Where you want something different.
No, but I love the respect and I love the insight that's being put forward here. Let's move on to topic number 3, core gameplay changes. And what I'll do, if it's okay with you guys, I might flip things up. We've started with the changes team the last 2 topics. We might start with the no changes team. Is that okay with you, Wilson Ma? You ready to go?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Excellent. All right, I'll start the timer. Kick off with why there should be no changes to core gameplay.
So, obviously I'm for no changes, which is why I'm on no change team. Even core gameplay changes, I feel like even kind of touching on my first topic, I feel like even changing the graphics, at least for me, would be a core gameplay change. But, I'm also referring to, no changes in, quests, skills, talents, I guess, even flight paths. It kind of sucked when I had to, fly down to Stranglethorn Vale and I had a mod that showed the timers was 14 minutes. Yeah, it sucked, but I have 14 minutes basically to go AFK, get whatever I needed to get done, and then come back without actually wasting my time that I could be playing being AFK. And I feel like vanilla was made a certain way, and it was meant to be played a certain way, and changing any of those things could change the gameplay and would not provide as close to the original experience as possible. And, and I understand, people wanting to change things for the better, graphics, flight paths, shorter flight paths, more of them, whichever, more graveyards, anything like that to make the gameplay easier. And, and again, that would take away from the original. I did high-end rating. We got 8 of 15 bosses in Nax. I don't recall how many in AQ40. But, even I was 15 at the time, so leveling and doing that, rating, was not necessarily easy to me. But I feel like too many changes could make the game easier. And, of course, I was 15, so it's not like it was the most difficult thing in the world. But for a 15-year-old, it was difficult enough. And, if you make it too easy, again, it goes back to kind of what I touched on when I went to graphics, that it would make me feel like it was in retail, at least for leveling. I rated minimally in the, what's the Cataclysm, I think. And the raids were easy. I played a Paladin, a Blood Elf Paladin. It was so easy to raid. But when I did, Naxxramas, AQ40 and stuff like that in vanilla, it definitely wasn't that easy. Any changes like that definitely would, like with retail, I'm a lot less involved because of the easy changes, or how I feel it's easier. Again, granted, I didn't do a whole lot in the current retail, but I feel, it's just basically just mashing the keys, and I knew I wouldn't die. Opposed to in vanilla, it definitely felt like it required a lot more critical thinking. As cheesy as it sounds, it definitely made me grow. And by that I mean, I would think more critically. I had to be more social. I had to reach out to other people. Even now playing on the vanilla servers, I have to group up and stuff like that, and helps me reach out to other people. So even if you do, a raid finder or dungeon finder, then it would just change it to not how it used to be.
Now, if I can just push you a little bit here, Wilson Ma, on your point, tell me why you want no changes to talents and class balancing.
I feel like, I obviously played throughout the, all the different patches. So there was a whole crap ton of balancing and talent changes and stuff like that. And I feel like, in 1.12 or 1.12, the talents are good for the content that is provided. It was balanced to what it was. I know there's, some patches that came out, each class would almost be overpowered in certain patches. But by the time 1.12 came out, I feel like for the most part, all the classes were pretty balanced, especially when it came to rating. Everyone, everything, every class, every person had their place, and there wasn't necessarily one class better than the other, or you didn't try to exclude one class from the raids.
Excellent. A very good opening salvo there from Team No Changes. And we'll now turn over to the cross-examination of Wilson Ma by Team Changes. Go for it, guys.
Well, I guess the PvP system potentially changing up could be a big change to core gameplay. I think there's a lot of people frustrated with how it worked in vanilla, and it's kind of a silly system that was just a long grind and just came down to how much you can play and account sharing, etc. So I wouldn't be opposed to them maybe revisiting that aspect of gameplay. I think a lot of people are asking for it as well.
Believe me, I totally understand what you're saying, PWJ. I had a friend who, he got High Warlord. It was actually my friend's dad, but he had 3 different people pretty much playing the account 24/7. So it definitely did not make it. Even then, it was not easy to get High Warlord. Yes, it does come down to how much you can play, but at the same point, you can't just necessarily go into a battleground and then just stand there. You still actually have to do stuff. So yes, it sucked. Yes, it took a long ass time, but in the end, if you're a High Warlord, you knew that person had put in their time to get where they're at.
Okay. Any other cross for Wilson Ma?
Can I make a point for him, or it's only cross-examination?
You know what? Go nuts. Let's mix it up.
I just want to say that I think personally that MMOs are about putting in the time. I think MMOs MMOs should always be a time sink, in my opinion. It should be, if you put in the time, you get rewarded. It shouldn't just be 100% like skill in the game. That if you dedicate yourself to this, you deserve the rewards.
Don't get me wrong. I love exclusivity in rewards. I was like a big arena player, so getting the 2,000, 2,200 pieces of gear, being able to show off, I thought that was a really cool concept that was introduced later. It showed skill and a bit of time and dedication. You have to learn, and I really like that about WoW. That helps make you stand out and stuff. But that fucking high warlord grind, I feel like I would look at kids and be like, wow, that kid just simply plays all day nonstop. Like it wasn't so much. It didn't garner the respect. And yeah, I just think Blizzard can just come up with a more creative way to go about their honor system to get people back into BGs, not just grinding out as many as they fucking can in order to grind ranks. I'm sure they can come up with some system that could, just make it more enjoyable for everyone. And if the time is there, and also if the skill is there, you can get high warlord, maintain a job maybe. I don't know.
Okay, all right. What we'll do now is that's cross-examination, and we'll turn over to the other team now, and we'll go to Ruckus on core gameplay changes. Go for it.
Okay, let me get ready. Crack my fingers here. All right. So let me preface this by saying I played World of Warcraft when it came out. I'm sure we all did. A lot of people did. And one of the biggest draws to me for the game originally when I played it was the sense of discovery, because we didn't know anything about the game. We didn't know how stats worked. We didn't know what items dropped where. We didn't know where to go for quests, anything. And I think Blizzard can make changes to the game that are simple, but can affect it in a huge way by actually possibly lengthening the life of the game. Because if you look at private servers now, you can get on the internet. I mean, the Encourage war effort, for an example, it's, guilds are going to start farming that from the get-go. And I was there when the gates were opened in vanilla. It was a glorious experience. I mean, but because the war effort took so long to get all the items for, you were ready because you knew when your gates were going to be open. And I feel like what will happen in vanilla, because we all know what those items are, is people are going to miss that experience because the gates are going to be open. They're going to have everything ready, and then bam, the gates are going to be open, and people are going to miss that. And I think just simple things, changing up the required items for that event, not adding items specifically, just changing them up. That way people have to figure out, again, what to do. They won't be able to farm it from the get-go. Things like that. Unfinished quest lines. I'd love to see some quest lines that were broken finished up. Items. Changing the way items drop, where they drop in specific dungeons maybe, or in raids, different items from different bosses. It won't affect the gameplay as far as stats go, which I am honestly against changing, like retuning classes or stuff like that. But just there's subtle things that can be done to lengthen the life for us, the playtime, to in-game, which is my big concern, that in-game's going to get here just way too fast. And everything's going to be on form. I want to enjoy that long, drawn-out experience again. So I think that things can be done by Blizzard to give us that back.
Excellent. All right, now we'll open it up to cross-examination. Go for it, guys.
Well, I would just like to say that no matter how much you change the items, there will always be just a certain amount of preparedness that players will have for these kind of events, because they just know the gates are going to open anyway. So I think it'll just get to the point where the hardcore players will be like, just get fucking everything under the sun that they could possibly need just to open up the gates. Like, why the hell does that matter?
Well, I mean, in that case, these hardcore raiders are going to spend all their time farming. They need to get gear. They need to get professions leveled. They need consumables. If you remember correctly, raiding consumables, just getting the items for that was a huge task, getting all that ready. And so it's going to be hard to say that a guild can just farm everything and have time to get their gear, get there, farm for their consumables. Then, I mean, they're going to want mounts. They need to make gold. They got to farm for gold. There's just so much to do. It's kind of, to me, unrealistic to say, well, they'll just farm everything, because just the time in that would seem to be wasted.
Well, to me, with hardcore players, that they are much more efficient at doing just about everything in the game, so everything will take less time, and these hardcore raiders can multitask everything so much better. They clear through everything like a knife through butter. It is insane. Well,
I can understand it. I know what you're talking about, but that right there is a select few group of people. Right now, any guild can get on the internet, find out what they need to open those gates, and start farming it right away. It can be a guild who's, might take them a while to get there, but they'll have everything ready. And that's my point. There will be hardcore people who will do stuff extremely fast. They got people who are going to level to 60 in 4 and 5 and 6 days. And that's unavoidable. But I think there is things that could be done just to lengthen the life to end game. And that's my biggest concern. I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed that journey so much. I want to make sure that journey can happen again. I'd like to see everyone enjoy that journey again. You know what I mean?
I understand. It feels like to me that even if you change all this stuff, there's still going to be the people that aren't going to get to experience this, because not everyone is on the ball when it comes to this.
You're right. I mean, and that's unavoidable as well. There are people who are going to play really slow, but there's that middle ground of people who will play at a regular pace, and then maybe a new person gets in vanilla and they're like, oh man, this is great. And they start playing. Next thing you know, content's rolling so fast on their server. Raids are unlocking, progression's moving so quick. Guilds have, things on forums so fast. It's hard enough to get into a good raiding guild, but to get into a raiding guild that's already have like Molten Core and farm, is difficult 10 times more, because there's attunements for that. So a new person getting in won't get to experience raiding like they should unless they find a guild that's moving really slow, because they're going to have to be backtracked for those attunements and that kind of stuff. So, I know this is, and coming from me, this is a lot of personal, but I think progression should be slowed in some way.
I don't think people should be punished for playing the game hardcore. If people want to put in all this time to play the game and they want to plow through the content and just show everyone how good they are at the game, they should be allowed to do it.
Okay, what we'll do now, Ruckus, I'll let you do that in your closing submission. No, it's all good. It's all good. I love how keen you are. It's fantastic.
I warned you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's fine. You'll get your closing submission soon. I want to get a closing submission from Wilson Marr on this one. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my point is that, like, I played in the original and I'm playing now, and I feel like any type of change to, stats, quests, balancing anything, which I feel like for the most part by the 1.12, I think Blizzard had done really well at balancing everything, at least for Next Ramus, for everything to be useful in, different raids and dungeons. And I feel like any types of core gameplay changes, quests, skills, talents, flight paths, graveyards, or even, the graphics, that could drastically change the game. Because as we have said before, you start changing one thing, it just kind of starts adding, everything else starts adding up. Like, we'll make this change. Well, let's make this change. Okay, well, let's add this one. And then it just kind of keeps going until it's as Balls of Steel said, or Mike, it's just a bastard game.
All right. Now, Ruckus, I'll invite you to close off your argument. Now you can get in all those points you were chomping at the bit to get out. Go for it.
Well, okay, just on Mike's closing with the punishing people, I think for hardcore raiders, it would be more of an achievement for them to know that they managed to get to the end as fast as possible, even though, the drops were a hair different and they couldn't put stuff on farm. It'd be more of an achievement to say, I did this faster than anyone. And now items weren't even the same. I got to the gates first. What kind of achievement is it to open the gates first when you know how to do it? It's like, really? It to me, that doesn't sound like much of an achievement. But if you do it, having those item changes simple, you're not changing the stats on items the way they work, just what is required for certain things can be more of an achievement. So, and I think everybody, maybe deep down inside, more people than want to admit may actually think they would want the game to last longer than it, if it was just powered through like all the private servers.
All right, good stuff. Now we'll move on from topic number 3 and we'll move to topic number 4, which is retuning dungeons or raid. Now or raids. We bled into that a little bit in that last topic, but that's totally okay. We can go further into it with each team, and I know a lot of you obviously have a fair bit to say on this topic, so it's fantastic. And we'll kick off again. We'll stick with team changes and Taladrill. I know you've been absolutely raring to go here, so let's set you loose and talk about why there should be changes and retune dungeons and raids in Classic. Go for it.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff to talk about with this one. So to start out with, there's really only one big change for dungeons specifically, because in general I think dungeons are really quite good. But that would be to nerf the Dire Maul farming capability for specifically hunters and any of the AoEs for Dire Maul East. It breaks the economy. Just too much gold gets implemented too easily and too rapidly, and it would not be fair to the other classes, and it makes it uneven for the classes, and it would be something that would just be in general just detrimental, I think. But for dungeons, for the rest of it, I think everything else is quite good. Now for raids, there's a lot that needs to be changed, at least for the initial raids. My stance for changes is to make it feel like vanilla. It's not about historical accuracy. It's about recreating what we remember, right, guys? So that means that we need to fix some of the things that we know now that are wrong, that really impact the game in a very negative way. Okay, so the first one off that list is world buffs. All world buffs need to be removed from the game in terms of joining the raid. Now, I would say keep the buffs, but they would disappear if you entered a raid. They are not needed for clearing content. We've already seen that on the private scene. And all they do is add bad gameplay changes. They make everybody far too powerful, and they make casuals not feel casual anymore because it's pretty much required to do it. So now you're either going to be getting buffs the day before a raid, or you're getting buffs same day, and that adds an extra hour or two to your raiding times. And it makes the content trivial, especially for Molten Core. It takes, your boss fights down from, a minute down to 20 seconds, and it's like, that's not even a fight at that point. The other thing that's really big is that consumable buffs, and I'm talking specifically flasks, are far too used by raiders. What I think needs to happen is there needs to be drastic effects on how to make flasks less useful. So have Black Lotuses take their it's like 1.4 or something effect where they are bind on pickup so that they can only be used by the alchemist who picks it. And also I think what should be added that's not vanilla is I think that the flask recipes also should be bind on pickup so that flasks would be extremely expensive and also extremely used only in the rare situation where people really want the boost. They would not then be economically feasible to pop 2 supreme power flasks per raid per week for ad nauseum. If you want to do that, then you have to be an alchemist and an herbalist and go to town to get it. Then the other thing that would affect that is that you have engineering where it would not be taken by every single person in the raid, again, making content easier. If you have people who want to flask, they're going to have to be an alchemist pretty much. And if they're an herbalist and an alchemist, they no longer can be an engineer. So that would really make it a lot harder for the hard raids to go through to do that kind of thing. With all of that said, MC, Ani, and maybe a bit of Blackwing Lair, they need to be buffed. They need to be buffed a lot, especially MC and Ani. Killing a boss in 20 seconds is ridiculous. I mean, they take about the same amount of time as trash sometimes. They need to take a lot longer. They need to be a lot harder. And Blizz can figure this out. They can do it. And it would be great to actually see a phase 2 Ragnaros ever. this is the kind of stuff that's important. We need to actually see the phases. We actually need to see the abilities and have people care about that, not just burn the bosses down. And then lastly, Molten Core and Onyxia probably should not be available at release. Everybody talks about vanilla and how it was good to be doing the leveling aspect and the understanding of it. What we don't need is to have every single person who wants to be in a hardcore raid feel like they have to rush to 60 just so that they can get into Molten Core at the same time as every other hardcore person. If they want to take their time and enjoy the leveling, then they can do that, and they won't miss out on any raid content because it's not released yet. I mean, make it a month, 2 months, whatever, just a little bit of a delay so that people can't do that.
All right. No, time's up. So
it.
I gotta, yeah, excellent. No, good job. You got it all in there. Excellent. All right. That was a fantastic opening speech there from Team Changes. So what we'll do now is we'll throw it over to cross-examination. Who's got some questions for Taladrill?
You said so much there. I'm still just trying to take it all in. So forgive me if I'm,
that's fine. Sorry.
if I pick a little here. So where? So this is mostly from private servers. Obviously, you're taking this from with all the having mandatory world buffs, mandatory as many consumes as possible for every raider, right?
I mean, yeah, but we would be expecting the same thing to be happening in Classic. I mean, that's gonna happen unless Blizzard changes it, because that's how it was functioning back in vanilla.
All right, that's fair. I just want, I think for that certain thing at least, I think there's going to be so many more people playing Classic WoW than they do on private servers and also the fact that these things are all just options. There are going to be so many different types of guilds in Classic that are all going to have different mindsets that I think the people that get all these world buffs, get all these consumes are just going to be looked upon to the rest of the community as sort of just a goal at some point, even though they probably won't fucking put in the actual time or effort to do it, because we're gamers, we're all a bunch of lazy pricks that they just want to take it at their own pace. These things are options. You don't have to do all these things. You can enjoy the game however you want.
I would disagree. I think that even on the casual guilds that I played with, people were still expecting to pop flasks. Plus, we've got on retail, I think it would be worse, frankly, because in retail, people don't play classes because they do 3% less optimal DPS than other classes. It's ridiculous. It's that same kind of mentality is going to come into Classic in a big way.
Does anyone else have anything for Taladrill before we turn over to the other team?
Yeah, it's just he just said so much. I'm just trying to
Oh, it's all good.
I'm trying to remember everything he said.
Mike, if Team No Changes is a little discombobulated, I understand. There was a lot of gut punches delivered by Taladrill.
That was, I just got bombed with knowledge. But I think one of the things that stood out to me is you're talking about how, to Flask you had to be Alchemist, and I didn't catch the engineering part. What would you have to be engineering for?
Goblin Sapper charges?
Usually people do engineering for Sapper charges and for other stuff like Dragonlings or Mechanical Chickens, that kind of thing. So the less engineers you have with that is less raid DPS too.
Fair enough. That I can't necessarily speak on that, but I guess on the Flask part, I feel I understand where you're coming from, and I get it. But when I raided, I don't think I ever flasked. Rarely did I get the world boss buffs. Granted, that was 14, 15 years ago, so obviously the expectations will be higher. But I feel if you had to be Alchemist to have flasks, I feel that could actually have an impact on the economy of the game.
It would definitely have an impact on the economy. It would make flasks probably multiple hundreds of golds per flask, and guilds would hoard them a lot more carefully. But that would be nice, I think, because stuff like Dreamfoil and Grom's Blood, for people who don't have the flask recipes, it'll be a lot more accessible and or cheaper because less flasks will be utilizing them. So then things like Mongoose potions, etc., they'd actually be more affordable.
All right. Now, we're going to turn over to the opposing side and team no changes. And Venustus, Taladrill just opened up. He'd been training for weeks for that one like a prize fighter, and he just laid some huge haymakers. So Venustus, time to punch back for team no changes. Go for it in terms of retuning dungeons and raids.
All right. Thank you, Josh. I think we can all agree, no matter what Blizzard is going to do, it's going to shake the very foundation of the game. Dungeons and raids are pretty much the core gameplay of the game. It's what people do while they're leveling. It's what people do to farm the pre-raid beasts. It's what people do at the end game. It's what they want to do when they're level 60. It's what they want to do when they level. I mean, there's so much time people spending in those instances. It's mind-blowing. So changing and retuning must be very, very, very careful. It must be thought like 10 times before changing anything, because changing one thing can just create this shitstorm of things. I mean, like the normal farming, etc. It can alter many different changes indirectly, like changing the economy, etc. But I want to address more about what changes you demonstrated you were talking about, because I think those changes were catering to the top 5% of the players, if not 1% of the players, because as it was said by, I think, Wilson or Boss of Steel, not everybody is ultra hardcore. Not everybody is preparing like hell, getting those BM buffs, getting that Dragon Slayer buff, getting that CG buff. It's not everybody that's put so much time to be so prepped that they can just rush through MC, maybe 40, 50 minutes. It's when Classic opens, Retail Classic opens, it will diverse the game 1,000 times more than the private service we have today. It will open the doors for many more players that are unfamiliar, unknown to the player mechanics of vanilla. I mean, I think there were players that never even touched World of Warcraft, and they will be learning the mechanics of wall buffs, of consumables due that time. And I mean, let those ultra hardcore have their fun. It's that and clearing the content in the first, I don't know, few weeks or maybe 1 week. It's how they want to play the game. Let the players play the game how they want to play it. Because if you remove the world buffs, yes, you will make it harder for the top players, and maybe they will like it. But it will make it also harder for the bottom level guilds that maybe struggle on some bosses, because, I mean, let's be clear, vanilla raiding is hard. Maybe not for a single player, but it is hard because of coordinating 40 different people to do their job. And maybe it's easy for some, maybe it's not. But I think we can all agree that coordinating people is hard, because otherwise everyone would just rush through it. Even on private servers, we see people struggle. We see people struggle even for MC and Blackwing Lair. I mean, Suppression Room is just a shit for most casual guilds. So I think we need to really re-evaluate what is the changes catering to, because it will catering the top player base is just like making heroics, and just make it harder and harder because they rush through the content. Oh, let's make 3 versions of this raid. Let's make heroic. Let's make mythic. Let's do legendary. I don't know. It's because that's what retail looks like right now. And as far as tuning goes, dungeons are also hard, even when you're leveling. I mean, you cannot just rush through it. You cannot just pull everything, then AoE down. No, you have to tap Sunder to keep aggro. Even like healing threat is a real deal. And you have to look at the things like that. That's how vanilla is played. And if you just retune those dungeons so people can rush through it, it will also change the way people level. And the same for the raids. It is hard, and it shouldn't be changed at all. There is some things that is, bound to change. I mean, major bugs, possible exploits that should be, of course, catered to. and it should be fixed or in a way so everybody can enjoy the game better.
Excellent. Great opening shot there, Venustus. Now I'll throw it over to team changes for cross-examination of Venustus. Does anyone have anything?
Okay, I just wanted to say I can attest for Taladrill. I think the last time I spoke with Josh, I was telling him how I popped my cherry in Molten Core. I was like, oh man, we cleared the whole thing in 3 hours. Since then, our guild, several weeks later, we were able to full clear Molten Core and then split into groups of 20 to 20 man in Exia before my first flask had even run out. So I definitely see how the content can kind of be a joke. And the question I want to ask you guys is, do you think players who maybe didn't experience Classic, do you think they might get more enjoyment if they step into it and go, like, wow, this is hard, you know? Maybe they're used to, like, Heroic and Mythic levels on retail, but if they come to Classic and they're having trouble with these bosses and there's that real sense of progression, I think that's what's going to keep the community around. I think it's going to create more competition for the higher up guilds that are used to, you know, killing bosses in 30 seconds. You know, maybe it won't be as easy. And I think it could just be better for the game overall.
I think it all boils down to, like, the last point. It's lengthening and extending the playtime of the game for everyone and making it more of a challenge. And there are hardcore guilds to do things super fast, but it's, I think, more of a challenge, and making the playtime longer is going to benefit everyone in the long run. I think that's what Taladrill's whole point was. Just none of what he said really breaks any mechanics or changes dungeons in a way that it's not drastic. It's just slowing things down. And that's really what it all boils down to. It's just we need to slow things down from the way private servers are going right now.
Taladrill?
I think that's really the right way to think of it is, you know, people are saying hardcore casual. That's totally the problem, and we're looking at it in the wrong way. World buffs makes the dungeons casual. World buffs makes the dungeons easier. It doesn't make it hardcore. Hardcores use it because they can go through it make it faster. Not having world buffs actually makes all of the content harder, in a lot more of a sense of having the entire dungeon not be easy mode, not be the free epics. So all of that makes it better. To not have those world buffs just makes the whole thing feel harder, slower, a little bit more casual friendly because they don't have to do all these buffs and all of that. So it to me, it's only positive to do that.
Okay. Any
Yeah,
final?
you don't want to end up with a bunch of raid loggers that come on once a week to just blow through content and then log back off until next Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really see how removing the world buffs would help the casual guild, because if, in my understanding, the casual guild struggles on some bosses, and removing the buffs would be setting them back, and maybe not letting them have that Nefarian kill they wanted for weeks. Maybe they have to wait maybe 2 or 3 more weeks. But then maybe after 10 attempts, all right, guys, we got it. Let's put buffs. Let's give it 110%. Let's do this. And then they get it, because they can utilize the game mechanics that were implemented and were there from the start, and they use it to beat the boss. How is that?
No kill in Classic is guaranteed, and there's no casual mode for it. If you can't beat the boss, then you don't get to see the content. And that's what people like, is that Nax is only people that are willing to invest in it.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll turn over to your closing arguments. And Taladrill, I'll start with you. Go for it.
I'll just say again that I think that, you know, to make the changes necessary, and Blizzard knows, they know tuning, so let them figure it out to do that and make those changes so that these raids can feel better and make them be the challenge that they used to be. And doing that will make everybody, I think, happier and enjoy the raids more. I mean, nobody thinks of Molten Core as a quality raid right now because it is so easy. Let Blizzard relook at it, and with the knowledge that we have now, give us an experience that will be worth it. And I think everybody will appreciate it if it does get that polish.
Okay, Venustus, tie off your argument. What have you got?
I think Blizzard needs to really tread lightly, because ultimately they will, if they cater to the top percentage of the player base, to the top hardcore, they will ultimately change the game in a way that is seeing today in retail World of Warcraft, because they push the players to the limits, opening new kinds of difficulties like heroic, mythic, etc. And I think if you cater to that percentage, you will just ultimately end with that product instead of vanilla World of Warcraft, where you said, I killed Ragnaros. Well, you killed Ragnaros. Well, was it heroic or mythic? Nothing. It was just normal. One level. You killed Nefarian, you killed Kel'Thuzad. Yes, I did it all. And not some heroic bull crap or mythic bullshit.
Okay, very good stuff, guys. We're over the halfway point of the debate now, and I can feel you all getting a bit more confident, finding your feet, and getting a bit more fired up. This is fantastic stuff. You're all doing so excellently well. I can't say enough good things about this chat. Now, we'll move on to topic number 5, and this is patch 1.13, or obviously a potential patch 1.13. What I'll do is, because I'm just going by the flow of things, Taladrill, this is your topic. I'm going to ask you to please open up again on this one. And you're going to come charging in again, I'm sure, with all these body shots. So go for it on patch 1.13.
Yeah, it won't be as extreme, but yeah, okay. So patch 1.13 is necessary to me. I mean, it's either that or stick with 1.12, because if we do anything like go into TBC, then inevitably it's going to lead to Wrath. I mean, does anybody want to play Wrath? That's where we get Dungeon Finder, and that's where we get a whole bunch of, all the welfare epics that everybody talks about. TBC might have been a good content in a lot of ways, but it also implemented a lot of stuff that wasn't great. It killed PvP with all of its resilience gear. It obviously implemented flying mounts and all this other stuff. So if we allow it to progress past 1.13, then, if it goes to TBC, then it will go to Wrath. TBC isn't going to magically be the point where everybody says, oh, we've had enough, we're going to stop. No, they're going to keep going. And I don't think a lot of us would want that. We want it to be vanilla. So what can we do? Well, we could implement 1.13 and it would be fantastic. We could get new 40-man raids. How awesome would that be? It'd be incredible. As long as Blizzard didn't implement like a PTR kind of thing for people to be able to data mine the heck out of all of the raids and all the stuff that they do now. Like, just release it, bugs and all. Let people just throw their bodies at the problem and just see what happens. It'd be really exciting to get that kind of that would be the stuff that all of us are probably searching for, like to be able to experience the progression of a 40-man raid, no knowledge, no understanding, and to be able to do that from scratch. That would be phenomenal for all of us who are trying to relive that experience. Although what they'd need to do if they did 1.13, they would need to make sure that item progression would not get stronger than Nax gear. It could be a lot of side grade kind of stuff. Nax gear just breaks classes. It's so strong. So as long as they don't do higher eye levels, I think we'll be okay. But yeah, I'd love to see new raids, new 20-man raids, heck, new 10-man raids, new dungeons, anything. I mean, it would be amazing, and there'd be a lot of ways that they could do this. And they could have Classic be the version where you don't increase your character, you just have more content delivered to you and just give you more and more and more options as you're playing. So it would just be truly the patch that has no end to it. That would be amazing.
Very good opening shot. Did anyone have anything in cross-examination for Taladrill?
I don't even see 1.13 as a change. I just see like you're just putting out a brand new game.
Taladrill?
This is weird.
Taladrill, what would you say to that?
Well, I mean, if you have the gameplay and you have, I mean, it would be an expansion effectively, but it would be an expansion based on Classic. And I think the question would be, do people like the Classic content, or do people simply like exactly what Vanilla has? To me, I've been raring to have new content in WoW, but with what retail provides, it's not the kind of content that I want, so I don't play it. I want the kind of content that Classic can deliver, and if they can deliver more of that for me, then that's a huge win.
I honestly agree, only for the fact that, just like from where my point of view is, like it's not vanilla anymore, so do whatever the hell you want. So those are just my thoughts.
It is a question of, are we trying to, is Blizzard putting this out to preserve this kind of historical aspect of gaming history, or is it to provide effectively new content for people who've never played it? I mean, it's hard for us to answer that, but yeah.
I would say it's the first, but that's just how I see it personally. Just like if you're bringing this back, you should just be doing everything you can to preserve how the game exactly was.
Now we'll turn over to Team No Changes. And Mike, you're being held back. You're raring to go. You're like, hold me back. Go for it.
So with a potential patch 1.13, the way I wanted to come at this, like, I actually don't feel like it's a change per se, because at that point it's just like, how do I put this? I feel like you're just making World of Warcraft 2, and the fact that I feel it's just not going to be vanilla World of Warcraft anymore. Like, there needs to be a 1.12. So if they're even going to do this, like when I was thinking about it in my head, like if they're even going to do this, there needs to be a 1.12 server for the people who wanted vanilla WoW and don't want to go beyond that content. Because I think if you force people into 1.13, I think it's just going to alienate the people that wanted Classic, because you won't be playing Classic anymore. I just feel like it's not even a change. You're just making a brand new game at that point. Like, why would I want to play this brand new game? But we were just asking for Classic World of Warcraft. Also, for the fact that Blizzard is going to have to put it. They'd be running three in the way I see it in my head. Blizzard would be running 3 MMOs. They'd be maintaining their 1.12 servers. They'd have a 1.13 server with trying to pump out this content, and they'd have retail with all their other games. Like, I'm pretty sure I remember Blizzard saying they didn't want to run 2 MMOs, but running 3 MMOs, that seems insane to me. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Now, did anyone have anything for Mike in response to his opening shot in terms of it's effectively World of Warcraft 2 at a certain point? Does anyone have any cross-examination questions?
I'm kind of on the fence about this topic. I think there's a lot of things Blizzard wanted to release that never made it to live. Emerald Dream as an example. There's just content sitting there in vanilla in the world that they could roll out. I mean, I didn't get far into Nax, but I did get a few pieces of gear. And Taldra's right. The gear was game breaking. It was so powerful, but that's because that was it. That was the end. There was nothing left. So of course it's game breaking because, I mean, it's Nax gear. I would love to have seen something that I could take that gear and something that I could use it in that was a challenge again in vanilla, not going to TBC and then all my Nax gear is useless. Greens are replacing it. Blues are replacing it. So that's why I'm on the fence. I like the idea of museum piece vanilla, but I would love to see Emerald Dream. The new dungeons, it gives me the goosebumps just thinking about content that I've never seen that's unique, that if not data mined would be just so fresh. It would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like the thinking about it is so nice, because I would also love to spend my super powerful next gear to do something else than keep customers up, to progress on that very, very game-changing powerful gear. But it's so hard to imagine, like, the technical difficulty and lore-wise difficulty Blizzard is going to have to make to continue vanilla. I mean, it's so hard to imagine. Are they going to keep 3 MMOs? Are they going to change the history, the lore? What about the characters? How it's going to turn? Is it going to be through Dark Portal again, but with, I don't know, vanilla numbers? Or how it's going to look like? It's so hard to discuss it that everything can happen.
Taladrill, close up your argument, then we'll get to Mike's closing argument.
I think 113 is going to be a requirement if you don't want to have this game progress to TBC. It's either going to be 113 or have the idea of fresh servers. And to me, fresh servers are just a really bad idea. We see that fresh servers kill old servers, and that's not fair to the old servers. So it's either 113 or go to TBC. And I think, to me, as a classic lover, I would rather have 1.13, and new content would be loved by many. So I think, new content in a whole different way, there's nothing downside to me.
Okay. Now, Mike, I'll get you and your closing arguments. And one thing I'd love to hear you touch on, if you feel like answering something that was just put to you, obviously, is by Ruckus, is how do you feel about, let's say in a hypothetical situation where Blizzard were somehow able to access, they've got all the old archives and some intern's gone, hey guys, what's all this? And they found, the half-built old raids that were supposed to be in vanilla, like your Emerald Dreams and things like that. And they decided to throw that in Classic in a patch 1.13. What would you feel about that?
I would just have to say I think it is just far too much work for a company that I feel like is already stretching the resources they have, even for how much money they make. You can only stretch yourself so thin, and if they feel like they can make enough money for a 1.13 to justify that, then honestly, I don't see it as a change to vanilla World of Warcraft because it's not vanilla anymore. But the whole idea of it is very idealistic, but I feel like we have to take a hard look at how Blizzard is going to come at this. And we know so little that I feel like 1.13 is far too ambitious to tackle at this point.
Topic number 6, we've got changing current content. And how I sort of explained this all to you guys was, things like, even though we have touched on it, we can obviously say it again or delve a little bit deeper. Things like the Dire Maul nerfing, things like finishing off quest lines, like people bitch about the Druid aquatic quests and things like that. And obviously a big one that we talk about, and Taladrill's touched on it as well in terms of delivering the vanilla experience as opposed to the exact vanilla content, is things like the AQ40 items. Would they bother changing that up? So to introduce this topic, I'm going to turn to Venustus now for Team No Changes to open up. Now, Venustus, tell us your thoughts on why there should be no changes to the current content in Classic.
Yes, of course. I think it's a very, very hard topic to discuss, of course, because there's so many factors that just play around. If you change one thing, you're going to change everything else. There's so many indirect changes with everything you even thinking to change. The current game, if you stay with the current state of the game, then you don't have to have that giant headache of having a change on every corner of the way. So the idea is to just let the game, like you have this finished product you had over 10 years ago. And the idea is to not push it down the throat, but let it flow without any game breaking or exploiting bugs. I mean, that aquatic quest, yes, it's annoying for some people, but I mean, it's just like, let's say, Shaman, what is it? The water quest.
The air totem?
No, the air totem is the easy one. The water totem is when you run back and forth between Silverpine Forest and you run to Barrens and you run back again.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, and then you have a air totem quest, and then you talk to a guy in Thousand Needles and you get it. I mean, I think it's just part of the vanilla experience that some things are very, very silly. Because, I mean, I think that's what I think maybe the people, developers behind it, the people behind the game were sometimes playing mind games with the people. I mean, sometimes over challenging, or maybe they set up a challenge and it's a very easy one. So I think we need to also tread lightly here how we are changing the current content and how will new players react to this. React to the current content being changed because they never seen the original one. So I think somebody past had said something about the museum, and I think also we should treat it like a museum because it shouldn't be changed to a way that is pleasable to everybody. Not everybody wants to play vanilla World of Warcraft. Some will come on, play to level 20, maybe 30, and they say, it's not a game for me. All right. There are millions of people that want to play just the way it used to be and not everything else. They can just play other game or play retail World of Warcraft. I don't know. There's something very like deep, sacred, almost, I don't know if you called it extremist, but it's just so holy to players that vanilla is just like this precious little stone, like this one ring that rules them all. It's just so precious to people that it's so dear to the heart for some players that if you see them changing the content to a way that is not recoverable, it's not what they experienced back in the past, it's going to get some people very, very angry. And as I said in the announcement back, what is it, like 9 months ago, maybe 10, they want to introduce the original classic experience back to the players. And I don't think changing current content to a way that it changes the flow of the game or the story of the game, I don't think that's the good way. Of course, we want to have these game-breaking bugs like where everybody lags on Thaddeus when somebody pulls him. Like everybody on the server begins to lag. But nobody wants that. We want a smooth game and we want to experience it smooth.
Now, you specifically mentioned quests. And when I'm thinking of things like the water totem quest or the air totem quest, definitely, I don't think they were left the way they were just for the sake of being silly. I imagine it was more something like quest developer Bob was working on the air totem quest, and then they pulled him aside and said, hey, look, we really need help finishing the Molten Core Attunement quest. You're going to have to wrap up that air totem. And it just never got finished. And I'm sure there's a bunch of quests in the game like that if Blizzard had the chance to go revisit and, wrap them up, add that Blizzard polish, I think this is their opportunity to do that. So, any other quests like that, this is their chance now to go back and revisit them and go with their original intention that they might not have been able to reach due to time constraints or whatever it was. So I think the ball is definitely in Blizzard's court now. I think they have a chance to fix up those things that they weren't able to the first time around.
Because, the quest is very major part of the lore. And I think it's like all those superhero movies. You don't fuck with the timeline. It's because, if you change one thing, then it may be the lore that is developed 10 years later. It may be all like, if you remove the certain NPC from this place, it should be in the X place in the 10 years and it isn't there. So,
yeah, I get what you're saying. But some of the quests, though, it feels like they wrote an entire book and then they just fucking couldn't fit in the last chapter.
Right. Can I chime in?
Yeah.
The lore's there. Like saying not including broken lore. That's like, okay, we use the museum piece as an example. There's a new sarcophagus that comes into an Egyptian, display at a museum, but there's no lid. So people are like, oh, wow, that's amazing. A sarcophagus is awesome, but the lid's gone. 12, 13 years go by, they find the lid and bring it in. People aren't going to be like, throw that lid out. That wasn't in there originally. What are you doing? These quests are the same way. They're unfinished, but they're part of vanilla WoW. So finishing them is not breaking anything or changing lore. It's finishing it. It's completing vanilla. We're not changing it or breaking it or taking away or changing specs or skills or making people stronger. We're finishing vanilla. That whole experience.
Isn't that more part of the patch 1.13? Because if you add something like content-wise, it's pretty much adding the gameplay to current vanilla. It will add like patches, content patches that we don't know about that would extend the vanilla as we know today.
Not necessarily. Personally, I don't think it will because you're taking it from the get-go. So they release vanilla with these quests finished. So it's not like 113 would be new content. Even though it's in there, it was never seen by anyone, never released. So that's totally different because it's something brand new that's in the game. This is just finishing stuff that already exists.
I know there's a lot of unfinished content in the game. Dragon Isles behind Stratholme. There is Emerald Dream. There's even Hellfire Peninsula behind the Dark Portal. I mean, there's a lot of unfinished things, but that is the part of the development of the game. I mean, a lot of things are being crossed away every time you're trying to do a new patch with content. And that's the way it is. Just because it's in the game, maybe it shouldn't be in the game because there was something wrong about it. Is it the lore? Is it the gameplay? Or is it a game-breaking thing that they couldn't add? Maybe they didn't add it because it shouldn't be there, like the content-wise.
Okay, what I'll do now, guys, I'll step in because it's okay because Ruckus, this is a great back and forth, and I just want to say, by the way, Ruckus was a ringer to this argument, and you've come in as a substitution at the last second, and you've won the award for greatest analogy of the debate with your sarcophagus point. So I was in tears over that one. So Ruckus, we'll stop cross-examination there only because it's your turn to open your point on this one. So changing current content, go for it.
Okay, well, I'm just going to continue where I left off. I think that current content could be changed. Like I used the Encourage analogy earlier. All it would do. There's no way to argue that it would break the game or make it worse for new players in any way. If you're new, you had no idea what it was. If you're old, you already knew what it was, but hey, you got to get new items. Well, guess what? Now it turns into a whole server community gathering event again. Not 4 hardcore raiding guilds getting everything together. The patch comes in, boom, the gates are open that day. That to me is not vanilla experience. That's private server experience. So that's really what it boils down to. It's just slowing things down. I feel like a broken record. I keep saying that over and over again, but I think there's content that can be changed, and it's really hard to argue that I would hurt anyone, especially new players, because they have no idea what's going on. Like the quests that are broken, new players aren't going to come in and say, "Oh man, this quest, why is it working now? I read on the internet it was broken. Damn it, I quit. I'm done. I'm not playing WoW anymore." They're going to be like, "Oh sweet, I heard this was broken. Hey, it's working now." So it's kind of like these changes are so subtle, and I think just so would be only beneficial for the servers and the people on them, and allow them to just experience what vanilla was by slowing things, seeing the gates open, everyone coming together to do these events as a server, as a community, which is WoW, what it's all about, is the community and the people. And that's kind of skipped over when you have guilds blowing through content. People get lost.
All right, let's turn over now to the cross-examination of Ruckus. Does anyone have any questions of him?
Just to compare with the sarcophagus analogy that he had before, that's how a sarcophagus was created. So that's what people expected. With these quests, that's how people know that quest was created. So that's what they expect. I feel like it's just a disingenuous analogy in a way, if that makes any sense.
Well, when you go into a quest, a new person goes into a quest, they expect that quest chain to finish. When they find a sarcophagus, they would like to find the entire thing. So when a piece is missing, whether it be of a sarcophagus or of a quest chain, it loses something. And then years later, when that quest is finished or that lid is found, I can't see people saying, "Oh my God, why is this quest done? This is terrible. Oh my God, why is there this lid on this stupid thing? Throw it away." So it's kind of like it's hard to say that people aren't going to want something finished, that when they go into it expecting to be able to finish it, isn't finished.
If I can cut in, what kind of specific quest lines are we talking about? Just to have some examples. Those unfinished quest lines.
Well, with the ones you guys were talking about earlier, or any, I don't know any specifics. I know there's some that are broken. I know there's content that wasn't finished as well, which is a whole other ball game. But it's just anything unfinished. It doesn't matter what it is, the specifics or not. If you go into it expecting to be able to finish it and you can't, to me, being able to isn't really harmful in any way to the game.
Well, then you have to ask yourself, how much experience are you adding to the game, and can affecting leveling in a way that people never expected before.
Well, there again, you're gonna have, like you said earlier, you're gonna have different kind of people on the server. You're gonna have power levels who are gonna power through everything. This few quests aren't gonna affect them, and you're gonna have these slow people who are struggling to level, and hey, these extra quests might actually speed them up a little bit, and they'll get to see more in-game content. So there again, using your argument from earlier, you've got a variety of people. So there's different leveling speeds throughout the whole server.
I think, too, we got to look back as to where Blizzard was as a company when Vanilla first came out. They had StarCraft out, Diablo 2 dropped, but World of Warcraft was their first MMO. It was a big undertaking for them. They had to worry about servers and all these different aspects of the game. And I imagine that hurt their ability to really flesh out the vanilla they wanted to create, whether it be these quests that simply didn't get finished, or maybe there were supposed to be more attunements that just never got done, whatever it was. And I think now with Classic coming back around, is Blizzard's chance to be like, all right, yeah, let's hit this again. Let's do it right. You know, we had all these great ideas maybe we didn't get to touch up on. And, I think they could really flesh out a lot of those things they missed out the first time around, simply because this was a whole new experience for them as a company. Now they're developed. Now they have the manpower and all that stuff. And I think they could really introduce just bring things back to the game that were originally intended, but just never made it there just due to circumstance.
Okay. What we'll do now, Vinicius, we'll cross over to you, taking all of that into account for your closing argument. Go for it.
But isn't that coming from a player that knows vanilla inside and out? Aren't you just hungry for more content that is vanilla-wise?
Yes, give me more.
Exactly. I mean, that is catering to a certain player base that is already played back in the day. Private service, I don't know, maybe no, maybe yes, but you know that game, I would assume, inside and out. And that is your personal, desire to have more content, to either play the game longer or to make it feel more fresh, more unknown, more challenging, and so more satisfying to overcome those challenges. But I think we need to go back to the sarcophagus. And where does the sarcophagus belong? In a museum. And I think that's it's maybe a bit funny, but I think that how we should treat as a relic of that time back then. And we need to experience it as it were back then. And too many changes, especially in the content, will impact the gameplay a lot. And
that's fair. I think this is Blizzard's chance to just do it right, you know?
Yeah.
In 1.13.
Of course, in the end, it's all Blizz. Everything is going to Blizz-like because it will be made by Blizzard, even if they change everything or change nothing. I mean, it's, of course, you can desire it. You can fight for it on the forums, on Reddit, do your keyboard warrior thing. But I mean, in the end, it's going to be Blizzard's choice to alter it, change it, leave it, or I don't know, make it third thing.
Fantastic. All right. Well, what is quickly turning into the Sarcophagus podcast. I love it. Ruckus, I'll turn over to you for your closing argument. If we can get one more Sarcophagus shout out, that would be awesome.
So a sarcophagus comes from ancient Egypt. So anyway, you said that it was from a veteran. This is coming from a veteran player who wants changes so he can enjoy it more, whatever. I actually I've seen Private. I haven't played a lot, but you just got to get on the internet and look up WoW Classic, and you can see the progression, how fast it's happening, and how quick it's moving. I want new players to experience what I did. I don't want them to get in and they're trying to get into a guild, and next thing you know, all these guilds that are actually progressing have progressed so fast they're left in the dust, and they're sitting there going, "Oh, wow, what do I do? How do I get into these guilds?" Or the server's just moving so fast, in game's happening so fast, they're lost. So I'm actually. This coming from me, is for someone who was very passionate about WoW initially, still is vanilla WoW, and I want other people to come into this, play it years down the road, say, God, WoW Classic was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I don't want them to look down the road and say, yeah, they released it, but it went so quick. I didn't get to do anything. Or, man, I tried to get into a guild, but they were progressing so fast. So trust me, this is coming from not someone who wants something for himself. I want this for new players more than anything. I want them to experience what I did and have the memories I had. And I feel like right now, the way it's going to go, if slight changes aren't made, it's going to be rolled over. It's going to be steamrolled.
Okay, well, that's it, everyone. You all made it through it. That was a lot of fun. I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. Mike, PWJ, Ruckus, Taladrill, Venustus, and Wilson Ma. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for taking the time out for this special event at Countdown to Classic. All of you had your moments in the sun. You all put forward amazing points, and that went really, really well. And most importantly, here's what we did. You were all sane. You were all respectful, and we all just got it out there as adults and put our points forward. And the point of this whole thing was just to show people that changes, no changes, whatever you are, at the end of the day, we can have a sane discourse about what's going to happen with World of Warcraft Classic. Now, thank you so much, everyone. If I can just basically say, thanks again. I'll throw it to the floor. Anything you want to say, go nuts.
I just have to say I was with team changes, I was very impressed with their points, and I have to say I don't agree with a lot of them, but I greatly respect for the ideas they have, and honestly, you guys should probably be game designers or something. I don't know.
I think maybe it's time for a little anger management.
Ruckus, you had something to say?
Oh, sarcophagus.
Another sarcophagus reference. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it needs to be a meme now.
Oh God! I was quite impressed with your speech for the Dungeons and Raids Taladrill.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, that was some good stuff.
I think Taladrill got best on ground for that speech, absolutely. But you're all probably wondering who's listening in. So, Josh, who the fuck won the argument? And you know what the best part about that is? You're going to decide. I'm going to put a poll up on the Countdown to Classic Discord, and I want you to vote on who you think put their best foot forward today. Now, I don't want you to vote just because your changes or no changes and you'll vote for that team. I want you to actually vote on, having heard what you heard, who put the best argument forward. So, I do look forward to the results of that one, and I'll announce them on a future episode of the show. But for now, everyone, thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you now all off stream, off mic, and we'll have a bit of a breakdown. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you later. And that's been the great debate, everyone. I really hoped you enjoyed listening to that as much as I did hosting it. There are plans for more of those on the show. Horde versus Alliance, Eastern Kingdoms versus Kalimdor, Melee versus Ranged. If you'd like to take part in one of those debates in the future, and you're a confident speaker who loves to rant about vanilla World of Warcraft, or if you'd just like the chance to voice your opinion on anything about vanilla WoW to the world via a quick call on the show, then please do reach out to me via the show's amazing Discord, or on Twitter at Count2Classic with the number 2, or email me at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com. You'll find all those links in the show notes for each episode and on the website. But with all that done, it's time for a bit of a rant of my own, for an extended thank you and some shout outs here at Countdown to Classic. I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the show and showing your support simply by downloading and listening to me jabbering away about World of Warcraft Classic. It's been a long journey to 60, and a lot of blood, sweat and tears has gone into the show. But here you are. Some of you have been with me from the start, and I thank you so much for every week coming back for more Countdown to Classic. So many of you have been interviewees or callers on the show, and a big thank you to those people who are stepping up to the plate and wanting to take part of the show and become what is Countdown to Classic, which is user input, listeners calling in and providing some of the memories and reactions and opinions that all of you love coming back to listen to. So thank you to everyone who has called into the show. A special thank you to my mods, Dookie Bear, Palfurus, Tsunami. Thank you to all three of them who do work behind the scenes to make sure that the Discord is running smoothly, and also Dookie Bear, who helps me manage the show behind the scenes off microphone. Thank you so much to those three. And a special shout out to a listener here who is someone who's been with me from the very beginning, and that's Minoru. And I can't say enough good things about Minoru. He almost feels like the first download in a certain way. He was one of the first few people to join the Discord, if not the first. I'm not quite sure, but he was certainly in almost single digits, I would say, and has been contributing to the Discord in a way that has made it, in my mind, the greatest classic WoW Discord out there. It is some of the most mature, thought-provoking conversation that happens on a daily basis, and I've really tried to basically forge a bit of a different identity there. It's not your father's Discord, so to speak. This is something different. We really do speak like adults on the Countdown to Classic Discord, and it's a place that I really regularly want to turn to in order to either shoot the shit with people or get the nitty-gritty on classic WoW. And Minoru is one of the driving forces behind that tone that I've really come to chase, and I can't thank him enough for basically sharing my vision for what the Discord should be as a great place for Countdown to Classic fans and vanilla World of Warcraft fans who just want to basically speak with like-minded folks about the game and about similar interests in life. So thank you so much, Minoru. He also contributes to the show a lot in terms of listener feedback and calls and voicemails and everything, and thank you so much to him. But there are plenty of other members of the Countdown to Classic Discord who deserve a very special thank you as well, and they are constant contributors who also make the Discord what it is. And those people are Seven Winters, Funk Nasty, Mike, Ruckus, Nostalgia Dad, Borden, Viv, Tian SG, Voicora, Neil, PWJ, The Anton, Rolly, MFY, and a million other people that I'm so sorry I'm probably forgetting about, but I can't name all of you. But those people and more, you make the Countdown to Classic Discord what it is, and so many people join and comment that it is such an amazing place to take part in conversation about the game. And I just want to thank you again so much, and I can't say enough good things about everything that you put down in the Discord as just great tidbits of information and conversation starters. And the final thank you goes to all of you, basically, for being a part of this community. The Vanilla WoW community is an absolutely amazing one. Everyone who's ever written a forum post that I've read out on the show, everyone who's just part of the community, who reads, who gets involved, thank you so much for being part of a group that I have really enjoyed basically becoming a big part of over the last few months. Clearly, the show's subject matter is greatly made up of the thoughts and opinions that you put out there online on a daily basis. I absolutely tread through as many forums as I can. I get you to call into the show. I read out your input. As everyone knows, I say at the top of the show, it's not my opinion on World of Warcraft that counts, it's yours. Because I don't know the game nearly half as well as all of you do. And it's your expert input that really makes this show what it is. And I can't thank you enough for just getting involved. And it's just been a brilliant experience for me over the last few months. But that's that. Just before I let you go, I also want to shout out to the members of the Countdown Council, Borzen, Flosy B, Raidmar, Palfurus, Permadrunk, Rarebit, Tsunami, The Anton, Wilson Ma, and Velarco. Thank you so much for your phenomenal support of the show. These are obviously the people that do dip into their pockets to a great extent for Countdown to Classic, and I can assure you that the show would not be the same without their support support, and I can't thank them enough. And also a big thank you to other supporters, Bossman764, Hurlbert, Good Kisser, Myrtlebanks, Purgatos81, and Zudamos. As always, other people who also dig deep into the pockets for Countdown to Classic, and thank you. You help provide the support that lets me get flexible with my creativity, spend the time on the show, and keep going delivering the kind of content that you come to expect from Countdown to Classic. But that's enough from me for now. Rant over. I'll be seeing you later in the week. It's time to get my pre-raid BIS episodes together now, and I just want to give a heartfelt thank you once again for listening to Countdown to Classic. I look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great start to the week, everyone.